All right, so welcome to our sixth and final RYSE Insight Bites session. I've really enjoyed getting to do these and connect with folks around a variety of different topics. And our last topic is about finding schools for students who are advanced or gifted learners and some particular areas in which families can be misled when they're looking for a school for this group of students in particular. To get started, I want to give you a couple of kind of orienting goals for the session. My main hope is to highlight key considerations when you're choosing a school for an advanced or gifted learner and really focusing on pointing out common myths or missteps that can lead families astray in this process. And then certainly want to provide additional resources for you to learn more. So we won't be able to go into everything in depth, but this should give you a good overview nonetheless. So I'm gonna share a little bit about RYSE, and then I'm gonna make sure everyone knows about the lottery dates. Then we're gonna look at what exactly happens when families who have advanced or gifted learners are misled. I wanna give you an overview of the programming available for these learners, give you time to ask questions, and also, or give you some ideas of questions to ask, and then also resources that can support you, and then we'll have Q&A. So as you all may know, RYSE is my company that is focused on providing families with better information so that you and we can all make better choices for our kids. We don't take a perspective on the best school for any particular family. Our goal is really to give you the best information. So I am a parent of a first and fourth grader here in CMS. I am really passionate about supporting families in not making common mistakes. I've worked with over 200 families now in the past decade and seen a really common set of missteps that families make, predominantly because information is difficult to access and the information we're given is often so misleading, but we don't know that. So I bring my background from research and my experience working in education and policy and data analytics commonly available to families as we're going through this process. I did study this in my here will be very counter to what you hear in other spaces, but I can assure you that it's actually not controversial among folks who are looking at this intensively in the policy and education research spaces. So happy to provide our sources at any point if that's of interest. Okay, so RYSE is really here to support families as they're choosing a school for their kid, a process that often starts out very optimistic and we feel maybe excited if we haven't heard too many horror stories yet. But we quickly find that the path is way more confusing than it seems. We find ourselves Googling to guess which schools we're able to send our kids to. And let me admit someone, and there we go. And we encounter information that can be confusing, conflicting, misleading along the way. And so we at RYSE are really trying to intervene and support you in these specific areas. So one, we want to provide you clarity on all of your school options so that you're not left Googling and guessing. And we do that through these RYSE Insight Bite sessions. You can watch the videos on our elementary, middle, and high school options. And we also have a tool called our RYSE Explorer, where you can put in your home address and see all of your public school options, charter, magnet, and traditional in one place. That is not available elsewhere, and that's why we wanted to create that resource to meet that need. We also want to help families access reliable information so you can feel confident about navigating your choices. So with that, we have high quality research-based information, which I'll tell you more about in our RYSE Explorer. That is our best indicator of school effectiveness. And we also offer RYSE Live workshops, which I'll be telling you more about as well. And our hope is that you're able to return to this process of navigating your school options and finding a great fit for your child. We do have a few strong perspectives at RYSE, and we like to make these transparent so you can decide if they align with your family's views and priorities. One is the stories that are told about so-called good and bad schools are not helpful for families. Getting lists like top 10 best schools in Charlotte or in North Carolina, as you will specifically see today, is not helpful and can be very misleading. So we really try to focus on thinking about what school's a great fit for your individual child, knowing that it can be different for different kids within the same family, and for your family overall. This point about schools being good, not being good or bad is going to be particularly important today because I'm going to do something I rarely do, which is highlight a particular school by name. And I will say it again, but I want to emphasize it does not mean that school is not a good school. It doesn't mean it's not a great school fit for your family. It simply means we want you to have more information to decide that with all of the knowledge about that school available to you when you choose. As I mentioned, our focus is on helping you avoid common missteps, and we are primarily public school focused. Though we appreciate all types of schools, we know that public schools don't serve all families well, and if that's your family at any point and you choose to access a private education for your child, we understand you're doing the right thing for your child. The reason we are focused primarily on public schools is because, as you'll see today, the most high quality information we have about school effectiveness, we don't have for private schools. And so that just limits RYSE's ability to really help you navigate that with more high quality information. I will say on private schools, if they are an option that you're considering, we do talk about what the research says about private schools during our RYSE Live workshop, and that can be helpful. We do give you specific questions to ask, so that is where we are able to provide some support. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the lottery. I imagine most of you are all familiar with the lottery that's ongoing currently. We are in the moment of the CMS School Choice Lottery. This is specifically for magnet schools. We have over 70, I think 77 magnet schools here in Charlotte. It's a huge program. If you want to know more about what a magnet school is specifically and how it's different from your other options like charter schools or traditional schools, that was our first RYSE Insight Bites session. And so you can watch the video. I really recommend it. There's a lot families often don't know about the different school types and specific questions and things you need to be thinking about for each school type. The magnet lottery does not include charters. They all have their own independent process. So step one is to enroll your child if they're not already currently enrolled in CMS. This means if your child is enrolling for the first time, they're a kindergartner or a pre-K student, if they have been in a charter school, or if they have been outside of CMS for a period of time. There's been conflicting information about this at times, but most recently CMS said if your child wasn't enrolled last year, they likely have been dropped, and so therefore they need to get a student ID again. So I would just recommend you check on that. So the deadline, this is really important, it's coming up so soon. Your child must be enrolled in CMS by November 21st if they want to participate in the CMS Magnet Lottery. So please make sure your friends know this. If you already have a child in the Magnet program and you have a younger sibling coming up, they need to be enrolled by that deadline, and they do need to participate in the lottery, even if they want to choose the same Magnet program as your older child. Keep that data in mind. You do not need a PIN number this year. That's something new in the process. You may have heard about it from other years. That's not needed. You need your student ID. They are having a lot of problems with that at CMS. So if you have trouble, you should absolutely call the placement office right away. And I can get you that number if you need it, and get them to help you sort it out. The next step is to learn more about your options. You can attend open houses that are still ongoing. You can look in RYSE Explore to get more of the information we're going to be talking about today. And you can certainly engage with families and friends who have firsthand experience. In RYSE Live, we talk about how you can get misleading information as you're learning about your options, even when you don't think you're getting misleading information. And so if you want to understand that better, please do join us. Let me see if I can drop that in the chat while I am talking here. So the last step is to submit your choices. So you have until December 5th of this year to submit your lottery preferences. And a couple of things on that, you'll submit 3 choices. All right, here's your RYSE Live link if you want to sign up. We actually have a session on Friday and one in December. When you're submitting your choices, you have 3 options. One thing that's new this year that was just announced on Thursday, what is that instead of in the past, you would only be placed on the wait list for your first choice school. So if you didn't get into your first choice school, you would be put on a wait list. If you didn't get into your second choice school, you would not be placed on a wait list for that school, and same for your third. This year, they have said you will be placed on a wait list for any schools that you're not admitted to. There's still some lack of clarity about this, and they said they're going to be releasing more guidance around it soon, but I just want to note that, and if you want to talk more about how that might impact your choices, let me know. We can chat in RYSE Live or in a one-on-one session as well. Okay, so with that, let's now jump into the specific information about how families with advanced or gifted learners can often get trapped when they don't even know that it's happening. So I want to make you aware of something that's really important and is going to kind of be the foundation of this challenge that families face. So in North Carolina, we have what's called our school performance grades. the NC, SPG, I guess I could have spelled those out so you didn't get so much jargon, but the school performance grades are the letter grades that you often see associated with the school, an A, a B, all the way down to F. These are they're unique. They have their own formula, but I will tell you they are equal in terms of quality, in terms of low quality to gradeschools.org, US News and World Reports, Niche, School Digger, any other rating system that is currently available has a similar problem. And it's true for the state report cards and for the ones you find online. And that is that they're either entirely or almost entirely based on a poor measure of school effectiveness and a misleading measure of school effectiveness. So in North Carolina, is 80. Me okay? If you can do like a thumbs up or pop on the camera, let me know if you can hear me. Hello, hello. Can y'all hear me? Okay, thanks, Aaron. Awesome. Okay, Avram says, okay, thank you. Sorry, I don't know why it went out temporarily. That was surprising. If you need me to repeat something, just let me know. So these scores or these ratings and scores and grades that you see are almost entirely or 100% are entirely based on average achievement test scores. So when you take a test and the scores are from 0 to 100 and you get your number back and it's an 80, that would be the equivalent of your achievement test score. They just take all the scores in the schools and average them and say, this is the average achievement of that school. And if the number is high or higher than most schools, they're going to get a high rating or a high grade. And if the number is low, then you're going to get a lower rating. There's one huge problem with this, and that is that average achievement test scores do not primarily tell us about what's happening in the school. So our best research, let me point you to one summary here. This is the number one mistake that families make is either knowingly or unknowingly relying on school ratings. You can see we've got a number of studies here, and this topic has been studied extensively for the past 20 years. And this is a great summary of what the research says, which is when families turn to test scores, which is achievement test scores, for information, they are likely to end up with a picture that is both incomplete and here's the real kicker, inaccurate. This is crystal clear in education research. This is true for the school report card grades from North Carolina, US News and World Reports, Digger, School Digger, grade schools. There isn't currently one available that is based on something higher quality. However, we do have higher quality information, and it is this little 20% here. Unfortunately, it is not enough to make these ratings not show the bias, but the growth is different than achievement because it tells us, regardless of where your student started, at the lower end of the range, the middle, or in the case of many of you, at the high end of the range, did that student move forward, stay stagnant, or fall behind their peers across the state of North Carolina? So this measure has also been researched for decades, and this is a high quality measure of overall school effectiveness. It does not tend to tell us about the things outside of the classroom. It tends to tell us about what's happening in that school building, that no matter where the students started, how much have they moved forward or fallen behind since they came into that school building. That is called student growth. This measure is a good indicator of where schools are effective at supporting students academically. When it comes to academic achievement, we actually have three big research papers, research studies that were done that tell us that academic achievement tells us just 20% of that tells us about the school's impact on that kid's learning. And 60% comes from outside of school factors, such as how much that child has had access to reading when they were growing up, how highly educated their parents are, how affluent they are, which leads to all kinds of things like stability, access to high quality pre-K, access to a nanny, all kinds of things that can affect. 60% are reflecting those factors. 20% are reflecting school factors, and 20% are unknown. We don't know what's causing them, but we know that the majority of that achievement number has to do with factors that are not related to the school. And that is why when families use that information to try to understand schools, they get an incomplete and inaccurate picture. Now, I go into this topic in depth in RYSE Live. So if you're like, that kind of makes sense, but I have a lot of questions, or yeah, but this, that, and the other thing. I think you're going to have great questions and you should have all of those answered. And we do that in depth in Rise Live. So I'm not going to have the chance to go really deep in it now. But I do want to just show you a bit about these sessions just so you'll know they're available. Honestly, this is the number one thing I would like for families in Charlotte to have. It takes longer to go into detail on these topics, but I want you to know it's out there for you. We have one this Friday from 1 to 2:30 and one on Tuesday, December 2nd, 8 to 9:30. And we cover things like what we're going to actually take a peek at now, which is why is the so-called number one elementary school in North Carolina actually failing students? We look at the school district of Charlotte and ask if it is effective, is a strong district overall. We look at what information is misleading and why. We go into detail around the academic achievement versus growth. And then we look at what the research says overall does matter. So if these ratings don't matter, then what does and how might we understand those as we're considering our options for students? You can see on the right here is a pop quiz that I ask along the way that most families answer incorrectly, which is fine. And it's a reflection of the poor quality information that we're being given. And then we look at what quality information is available, and you can use that for your process. Okay, I'm going to keep going and definitely jot down any questions you have. We'll have time for them at the end. Oh, actually, I want to tell you this. In the Rise Live session, we talk through a story of a family that represents the stories that families kind of commonly experience. I essentially put together a very common story here. And these are real schools in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I've changed the names of them just to we're not here to bash any schools ever. But we look at how Ava's family chose their school. We look at how she was ultimately disappointed with her school, even though they did their darndest to choose a great option. And then we talk through how you can avoid those common missteps as a diligent, caring parent along the way. Okay, so now let me go a little deeper with these ratings and why you're likely to get misled. And I'll preview for you that it's not just the ratings, but I'm going to start here and then come back to it. So this is such a great example. This article from the Charlotte Observer just was released October 28th of this year. This is fresh, hot off the press. And this article highlights the number one school in the state of North Carolina, according to US News and World Reports. And it's located right here in Charlotte. And they talk about and highlight this school. This is a classic example of how families get misled. And so I'm going to go through it now. I am going to name the school that is in this article. It is, of course, public information. It is named in this article. I have no interest in bashing this school. I'm sure there are incredible educators there. I'm sure there are families who love this school. My point in sharing the name of this school in this specific example is to give families more information. And this is information that's available to you that I want you to be aware of and that you often will not be aware of if you only see common information that's out there. So this school that is particularly mentioned here, although this also applies to the number two school in North Carolina, according to US News and World Reports, is the same story. So this is not unique to this one school. This is not uncommon. So this school, best elementary school in North Carolina, is Metrolina Regional Scholars Academy, if you believe US News and World Reports. It's located in Charlotte, but they actually chose it as the overall best school. The state of North Carolina gives the school an A rating. As a family, you are right to think that this is going to be an incredible school. And I want you to think for a second about what you think of when you see these scores. What kind of ideas are you given about how your child will be supported academically, social emotionally, etc.? Because what I find is what families hear or believe when they get this information is that this school is well equipped to support my student, at least academically. I think people know these numbers probably don't give us a good sense of the culture in the school and the sense of belonging my child might experience and the extracurriculars. But I do think that when we see this as families, we're mostly thinking this school is good at supporting students academically. So you'll be surprised to see then what their growth data shows. Now, again, without having a chance to give you the full definition and dive into it in depth, the growth data compares your student to a student who had a similar test score last year. So if your child is an advanced learner, it's going to compare your child to similarly advanced students, and it's going to say, based on where those students were last year and their average score this year, so the average amount of progress those students made, did your student make average progress, more progress than that group of students, or did they fall behind their peers academically across the state of North Carolina? Okay. There are some common questions we get about this, which is, well, doesn't this disadvantage students who are at the higher end of the range? Isn't it easier to make progress from 0 to 50 than from 95 to 97? The answer to your question is no, but we do go into that in depth in RYSE Live. So if you want to see the data behind that and understand why that is not a worry that you should be bothered by, join us then. The academic growth is the measure that actually answers the question of what we want to know as parents, which is how effective is this school at moving my kid forward, regardless of where they start? And for this school, students have been falling behind their peers academically across the state of North Carolina for 24, 22, 23, and 24. For the most recent year, last year, they actually met their growth. So that means they stayed about average with their peers across the state. So I'm happy for them that they've made some progress. But this information does not get communicated when we talk about the #1 school in the state of North Carolina. And this is a huge part of the issue. Now, a couple of other things to learn. This is specifically a school for advanced learners. This is not a problem that's unique to schools like this one, but it's a particular problem with students for advanced schools with students who are advanced learners. And here's why. This school only accepts high scoring students. They, by the way that North Carolina gives out their ratings, they will always have an A rating because they simply take those achievement test scores, which are required to be high in order to be admitted. They average them and then they say, hey, you have high test scores. That's what they selected on. So they are always going to have high test scores at this school. And so even though the students are falling behind academically, it's just 20% of that score. It's not enough to bring down that grade to alert families that they need to ask more questions and understand more what's going on. You may wonder if this is just because they select for their students and maybe that's like a unique situation. I don't have it here, but the second school on the list, and you can look it up, has the same issue. They don't select for high achieving students, but they advertise themselves as a school for advanced students and they live in an affluent area, which is predominantly what those achievement test scores tell you is how affluent or advantaged families are. And so they have high test scores, but their students are falling behind their peers academically each year. Okay. This is a trap this is a strong example of it, but it is not unique. And we see this in multiple schools across the state of North Carolina, across Charlotte in particular. Let me try to summarize it this way, actually. The fundamental problem is that families get information that tells them that the prestige of a school is the same as the effectiveness of the school. And that is not the case. The effectiveness of a school has to do with the effectiveness of the school leader, the effectiveness of the educators, the effectiveness or the quality of the school climate, the ability to use resources to support students effectively. And none of those have to do with how high students' test scores are. So when we're getting information about schools that tries to tell us whether that school is effective or not, but what it's actually telling us is about the types of students who attend that school, we are at risk for being misled. It's not the students that determine the effectiveness of the school, it's the adults in the building. And that's the fundamental problem here is this is telling us the students in these schools are high achieving, and you can have a school, as in the example of the first and second U.S. News and World Report's best schools in North Carolina. You can have a whole school of very, very high achieving students, and you can have a school that is not effectively moving those students forward. In fact, they can be falling behind, as we see in this case. Okay, I am going to move on from this topic, but I am going to leave room for questions. Again, to get all of your thoughts on this answered, I would love for you to join us for RYSE Live, where I have all the time to go into it. But I do want to, before we move on to questions and answers, give you an overview of the academic programming options that are available in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, just so you have a sense of either what you can navigate now or what's coming for you down the road. So in elementary school, we have what are called talent development programs, TD, it's often called, right? This can be in a couple different forms. You can go to a school that is targeted and dedicated to talent development, and that can either be as a full magnet or as a partial magnet. If you don't know the difference between full magnets and partial magnets, check out our first video in the series. But there are schools that have specific programming for talent development or gifted school students throughout their curriculum in an entire school. There are also pull-out programs. So all across the city, all across CMS schools, and they should also have this in most charter schools, you have talent development or gifted and talented programming where students are supported alongside their usual curriculum in their usual classrooms with students, with their peers. They're pulled out and they get additional learning opportunities. This can look like a lot of different things. Your child could just be in, sometimes call it academically and intellectually gifted. You can be an AIG for reading or math or both. You do have to test in. The testing starts in second grade in CMS, and so your child can start receiving these services in second grade. They typically end in this format in fifth grade. So after fifth grade, you would not see the pull-out talented and gifted style programming in your school in the same way that you saw it in the elementary grades. I do want to note that there is one particular school here in CMS called the Horizons, or the program is called the Horizons program, and it's located within Charles H. Parker. There have been changes to this program lately, so when I've spoken to CMS about it, it's been a bit unclear to me. The school, for example, is listed as a 3 to 5 school, but then in their materials, they list it as a 3 to 8 school. But for the moment, I recommend speaking with them because of the recent changes. My understanding is that if your child qualifies, they will contact you proactively, as opposed to you going and applying for the school. But if you're interested, I would recommend reaching out specifically to the program contact, which I can get to you, or to the advanced programming office in CMS. I did want you to know that exists. After fifth grade, your students have a couple of different ways of accessing advanced programming. The three kind of main pathways that are available are, I guess you could say four, essentially, pathways. One is the International Baccalaureate program. So this is a program that you can either access in an entire school that's focused on IB programming, or you can access it within your zoned neighborhood, your zone school, or another magnet you might choose to be a part of. IB is a global program with schools across the world that brings an international focus to learning, focuses on community service. There can be a community service requirement, and students are also required to complete a paper and take specific exams at the end of their IB journey. If they continue through 12th grade, they can get a specific IB diploma. And for some folks, that is a value in terms of the competitiveness of, being more competitive when applying to college applications. Virtually all of the programming in IB schools or in IB programs are advanced as well. For some of them, you are able to get high college credit as well. There is also something relatively new in Charlotte, which is the Cambridge program, and this comes from Cambridge University in the UK. It also has an international focus and provides advanced programming. The only magnet program in CMS that currently offers Cambridge programming is Eastway Middle School. So if you're looking for a middle school option for your student, you could look at Cambridge programming in that school to choose into it. The other way that Cambridge is available is actually CMS is putting this in a number of neighborhood schools. So you might find that in your neighborhood middle school, you actually have Cambridge programming available. Actually, I believe they're adding it at Garinger, so it could also be at your high school. But you could look into Cambridge for advanced programming. They offer college credit for their courses at the high school level as well. The third is advanced placement. Many of us know that AP. I feel like this was more commonly available when I was in school. So these are the courses that are aimed at getting college credit. It doesn't necessarily have the same overall international focus as IB or Cambridge, but it's about providing advanced, more challenging subjects that your student can get college credit for if they score high enough on the final exam during high school. I don't believe there are AP courses available in middle school right now. And then the last option is dual enrollment learning, which is what we call students who are dually enrolled in a public K-12 school and a college. So dual enrollment refers to your student being in high school typically, but actually taking classes at a college campus. Dual enrollment, this is not well known. Dual enrollment is available for all students in CMS. So regardless of where your student attends high school, they are able to access advanced learning opportunities through the dual enrollment process, usually through CPCC. There are also entire high schools that are oriented towards having students take college courses as a significant part of their high school experience, and even allows them to get a free associate's degree or a free up to 2 years of college credits. Those are the early middle colleges. If you're interested in those options, make sure you check out the RYSE Insight Bites on high school options, where I went through that in much more detail, but definitely something to be aware of. There's some pretty amazing stuff. Not a fit for everyone, of course, but something to keep in your mind. Okay, I'm going to skip that for now. And we're going to look at some resources to support you. So I'll share with you after this all the videos from all the other RYSE Insight Live Insight Bite sessions. I'll also share with you this question guide that might give you some thoughts about how you can dig a little deeper beyond those ratings, beyond average achievement test scores. And I want to tell you, I just had a parent messaging me from the Myers Park traditional school info session. And I am frankly disappointed to see schools giving families achievement test scores as indicators of school quality. We know that that is not a strong indicator of school quality. It predominantly reflects advantages families have outside of the school, such as affluence. It can indicate racial privilege and other things that do not speak to the quality of that school. And so you need to really be a critical consumer when you're receiving information from schools and think about whether this is achievement test score data or growth data, which is what we want. Is this telling me how much they're moving students forward, or is this just telling me how advanced their kids already are? Typically reflecting how advanced they were when they came into the building and not telling you if in the school they fell behind, held steady, or moved forward. These questions will help you with that. I've mentioned the RYSE Live workshops. I'm going to preview real fast for you to explore before we jump into questions. We are also available for one-on-one support. So if you're just getting into this process of choosing a school and you're like, I need a lot of help, we are here and happy to help you with that. And then we have our Insight Bites videos. This today is the end of our RYSE Insight Bites series. You can see we covered a number of topics, all the videos available, and they'll be in your follow-up email. And so with that, I'm going to say thank you. And I'm going to show you now our RYSE Explorer. So you can access this by going to go.rysekids.com. You can create a free account and look up any of the schools that I'm going to look up now. But I want to just give you a quick sense of what's available. And we're going to look up a couple of schools where I don't feel like families are always well informed about the effectiveness of that school. In the tool, you can look at all the schools in the state of North Carolina, and we only provide the growth data. There have been studies that have specifically looked at whether families should look at growth and achievement, like those ratings, or if they are better served by only looking at growth. And two studies have concluded that only seeing growth data is how families access the best number of options and are able to choose the most effective school for their kids. So you can see this information for schools across the state of North Carolina. If you sign up for your My List, that's the upgrade, then you can put in your home address and get all of your public schools that are available to you. You can see our family has 122 traditional magnet and charter school options, a number most people have no idea about, and it's very hard to find. You can obviously love my kids, but I'm not driving to Monroe from West Charlotte to take them to an amazing school. So you can use tools to narrow in and say, I'm only going to go 10 miles realistically. You can use your transportation zone to say, where's my transportation zone? To say, I actually require bus transit for my kids. So I'm only going to see the schools which they have bus transit to. You may want to look into their school type and say, I only want, or actually their magnet focus, I only want to see the schools that offer IB or talent development, et cetera. Those tools are here for you to filter down your options. And then here's the important thing is it shows you the academic growth, and it shows it to you for the past 3 years. One number doesn't tell us a whole lot about a particular school, but a pattern over time does. Coolwood STEM Academy is a rock star school in Charlotte. It is consistently supporting all groups of students. You can see student groups here in moving forward at a rapid pace compared to their peers across the state. And this school, by the way, I believe has a C rating. So again, the rating will mislead you on both the high end and the low end. It will conceal these schools where maybe students' overall achievement isn't high, but that school is supporting all students. You can see here, we can actually look at how effectively it's supporting academically or intellectually gifted students. And still we see overall strong results. If you ever wonder what they mean, we've got some information to help you understand it. You can also, this will be my last point on this, you can see demographic information that can be hard to find and information about specific programming. So you can see Coolwood is a STEM or STEAM school, the transportation zone it serves. You can also look at schools specifically by how they support a particular student group. So most relevant for this crowd would be selecting academically or intellectually gifted. And then my list is now going to sort itself so that it shows those with the highest growth for specifically kids who've been identified as academically or intellectually gifted at the top. So in this case, Piedmont IB Middle School, a school that people do know of as a strong IB Middle, it actually is a strong school in the sense that it's supporting students in moving forward. It's also highly regarded. I want to point out our other IB school, Randolph, I think I've zoomed in, let me see, or I have too many filters, is a school that I don't think families often have the insight that they have struggled to support students academically in moving forward. This is also an IB middle school, so it's not the IB that tells you if it's a good school or not, right? It's not the fact that it aspires to serve advanced students, that tells you if it's a good school or not. It's whether they have all of the parts that a school needs to effectively support students in moving forward academically. And you can see, unfortunately, Randolph has an area of significant growth in this area where students are, when it says not meeting, it means that they are falling behind their peers academically across the state. And so in RYSE Live, we talk about how this does not tell you if this is a good school or a bad school. It does not tell you if it's a good fit for your family. It simply gives you a starting point for asking more questions if you're still interested in the school. I have asked the school, why is it that we see these results? And that's what we want you to do, is to take this information and ask more questions so you're a more informed consumer about your child's options. I'm going to show you one more, and as I pull it up, you all can start coming off mute and asking questions that are on your mind. This is another school that specifically advertises itself as supporting advanced learners, and it has had a challenge in doing so, I would say, based on the fact that their students are not moving forward as fast. Now, again, you want to go ask the school, and maybe they have a great explanation for it. We want to put the power in your hands to ask that question, though. With that, I'll say thank you. You have my number here, and you have access to the RYSE Explorer. If that's of any resource as you're considering your options, I strongly encourage you to look up those schools that you hear about. I find that you really learn a lot when you ask those questions. So happy to help. I'd love to see you at RYSE Live, or if you know someone else who's starting out and wants to make sure they avoid these common mistakes. I'd love to see you there. And I think that's all for today. Thanks, everybody.